In spite of the dangers of this far land, bold men had of late been making their way back from the south, cutting down trees and building themselves a place to live in among the more pleasant woods and the valleys and along the river shores. There were many of them, and they were brave and well armed, and even wargs dared not to attack them if there were many together. Weren't a bright day, but now they had planned with the goblins' help and to come by night upon some of the villagers nearest the mountains. If the plan had been carried out, there would have been more none that left than their next day. All would have been killed except a few goblins kept the wolves and carried back as prisoners to their caves. This was dreadful talk to listen to, not only because of the brave woodmen and their wives and children, but also because of the danger which now threatened Gandalf and his friends. The wargs were angry and puzzled at finding them here in their meeting place. They thought they were friends of the woodmen and were come to spy on them. And then the goblins and the wolves would have to fight a terrible battle instead of capturing prisoners and devouring people. Waked suddenly from their sleep. So the wargs had no intention of going away and letting the people up the trees escape. At any rate, not until the morning. And long before that, they said, goblin soldiers would be coming down from the mountains, and goblins can't climb trees or cut them down. Now you can understand why Gandalf, listening to their growling and yelping, began to be dreadful, afraid wizard, though he was, and feel that they were in a very bad place, and had not escaped at all. All the same, he could not going to let them have it all their own way, though he could not do very much stuck up in a tall tree with wolves all around the ground below. He gathered the huge pine cones from the branches of the tree. Then he set one light with bright blue fire and threw on the back, and immediately his shaggy coat caught fire, and he was leaping to and fro, yelping horribly. Then another and another, one in blue frames, one in red, another in green. They burst onto the ground in the middle of the circle and went off in colored sparks and smoke. Especially large one hit the chief wolf on the nose, and he leaped in the air 10 feet, and then rushed round and round the circle, biting and snapping, even at the other wolves in his anger and fright. The dwarves and Bilbo shouted and cheered. The rage of the wolves were terrible to see, and the commotion they made filled all the forest. Wolves are afraid of fire at all times, but this was a most horrible and uncanny fire. If a spark got all their coats, it stuck and burned into them. And unless they rolled over quick, they were soon all in flames. Very soon, all the sparks on their backs. While those that were burning were running about, howling and setting others alight, till their own friends chased them away, and they fled off down to the slopes, trying to climb and yammering and looking for water. "What is all the uproar in the forest tonight?" said the Lord of the Eagles. He was sitting back in the moonlight on the top of a lonely pinnacle rock at an eastern edge of the mountains. "I hear wolf voices. Are the goblins at mischief in the woods?" He swept in the air, and immediately 2 of his guards from the rocks at either hand leaped up to follow him. They circled up in the sky and looked down upon the rings of the wargs, a tiny spot far, far below, but eagles have keen eyes and can see many small things at very distances. The Lord of the Rings of the Misty Mountains have eyes that could look at the sun unblinking and could see a rabbit moving on the ground a mile below, even in the moonlight. So though he could not see the people in the trees, he could make out the commotion among the wolves in the wolves and see the tiny flashes and fire, and hear the howling and yelping come up faint from far beneath them. Although he could see the glint of the moon on goblin spears and helmets as long lines of wicked folk crept down the hillsides from their gate and wound into the wood. Eagles are not kindly birds. Some are cowardly and cruel, but the ancient race of the Northern mountains were the greatest of all birds. They were proud and strong and noble-hearted. They did not love goblins or fear them. When they took any notice of them, which was seldom, for they did the streaking back into their caves and stop whatever feared them, but could not reach their lofty seats, or drive them from the mountains. Tonight the Lord of the Eagles was filled with curiosity to know what was afoot, so he summoned many other eagles to him, and they flew away from the mountains, and slowly circling round and round, they came down towards the ring of the wolves and the meeting place of the goblins. A very good thing too. Dreadful things had been going on down there. The wolves that had caught fire and fled into the forest, had set it alight in several places. It was high summer, and on the eastern side of the mountains there had been little rain for some time. Yellowing bracken, fallen branches, deep-peeled pine needles, and here and there dead trees, was soon in flames. All around the clearing of the wargs, fire was leaping, but the wolf guards did not leave the trees. Maddened and angry, they were sleeping and howling round the trunks and cursing the dwarves in their horrible language, with their tongues hanging out, and the eyes shining as red and fierce as the flames. Then suddenly goblins came running and yelping. They thought a battle with the woodmen was going on, but they soon learned that what had really happened. Some of them actually sat down and laughed. Others waved their spears and clashed their shafts against their shields. Goblins are not afraid of fire, and they soon had a plan which seemed to them most amusing. Some got all the wolves together in a pack, and some stacked the fern and bushwood round the tree trunks. Others rushed and round stamped and beat and stamped, until nearly all the flames were put out, but they did not pour out the fire nearest to the trees where the dwarves were. That fire they fed with leaves and dead branches and bracken. Soon they had a ring of smoke and flame all around the dwarves, a ring which they kept from spreading outwards, but it closed slowly until the running of fire was licking and fuel piled under the trees. Smoke was in Bilbo's eyes. He could feel the heat of the flames, and through the reek he could see the goblins dancing round and round in a circle like people around a midsummer bonfire. Outside the ring of dancing warriors with spears and axes stood the wolves at a respectful distance, watching and waiting. He could hear the goblins begin a horrible song. 15 birds and 5 fir trees. Their feathers were fanned in a fiery breeze, but funny little birds, they had no wings. Oh, what shall we do with the funny little things? Roast them alive or stew in a pot, fry them, boil them, and eat them hot? Then they stopped and shouted out, "Fly away, little birds! Fly away if you can! Come down, little birds, or you will get roasted in your nests. Sing, sing, little birds! Why don't you sing?" "Go away, little boys," shouted Gandalf in answer. "It isn't bird nesting time. Also, naughty little boys that play with fire get punished." He said it to make them angry and to show them he was not frightened of them, though of course he was, wizard though he was, but they took no notice and went on singing. Burn, burn, tree and fern, shrivel and scorch, and a fizzling torch, to light the night for our delight. Yahey! Bake and toast them, fry and roast them, till beards blaze and eyes glaze, till hair smells and skins crack, fat melts and bones black, and cinders lie beneath sky. So dwarfs shall die and light the near for our delight. Yahey! Yahari hey! Yahoy! And with that Yahoy, the flames were under Gandalf's tree. In a moment, it spread to the others. The bark caught on fire, the lower branches cracked. Then Gandalf climbed to the top of his tree. Then suddenly, splendor flashed from his wand like lightning as he got ready to spring down from a high, right among the spears of the goblins. That would have been the end of him, though he would probably have killed many of them as he came hurtling down like a thunderbolt. But he never leaped. Just as the moment the Lord of the Eagles swept down from above, seized him from his talons, and was gone. There was a howl of anger and surprise from the goblins. Loud cried the Lord of the Eagles, to whom Gandalf had now spoken. Back swept the great birds that were with him, and down they came like huge black shadows. The wolves yampered and gnashed their teeth. The goblins yelled and stamped with rage, and flung their heavy spears in the air in vain. Over them swooped the eagles, the dark rush of their bane, over them swooping the eagles, to the dark rush of their beating wings smote them to the floor or drove them far away. Their talons tore at Goblin face. Other birds flew to the tree's top and seized the dwarves, who were scrambling up now as far as they ever dared to go. Poor little Bilbo was very nearly left behind again. He just managed to catch hold of Dory's legs as Dory was borne off. Last of all, and up they went together, up above the tumult and the burning. Bilbo singing in the air with his arms nearly breaking. Now far below, the goblins and the wolves were scattering far and wide in the trees. A few eagles were still circling and sweeping above the battleground. The flames were about the trees, sprang suddenly up above the highest branches. They went up in crackling fire. Then there was a sudden flurry of sparks and smoke. Bilbo had escaped only just in time. Soon the light of the burning was faint below, a red twinkle on the black floor, and they were high up in the sky, rising all the time in strong sweeping circles. Bilbo never forgot that flight, clanking out to Dory's uncles. He moaned, my arms, but Dory going, my poor legs, my poor legs. At the best of times, height made Bilbo giddy. He used to turn queer, and if he looked over the edge of quite a little cliff, and he had never liked ladders, let alone trees, never having had to escape from wolves before. So you can imagine how his head swam now when he looked down between his dangling toes and saw the dark lands opening wide underneath him. Touched here and there with the lights of the moon, on a hillside, rock or a steam in the plains, the pale peaks of the mountains were coming nearest, the moonlit spikes of the rocks sticking out of black shadows. Somewhere or not, it seemed very cold. He shut his eyes and wondered if he could hold on any more longer. Then he imagined what would happen if he did not. He felt sick. The flight ended only just in time for him. Just before his arms gave away, he loosed Dory's ankle with a grasp and fell onto the rough platform of an eagle's eyrie. There he lay without speaking, and his thoughts were a mixture of surprise at being saved from the fire and fear lest he fall off that narrow place into the deep shadows on either side. He was feeling very queer indeed in his head. By this time, after the dreadful adventures of the last 3 days, with now to next nothing to eat, and he found himself saying aloud, "Now I